Hey guys, Bergs here from the Casual Athlete, and it's time for Zero Tackle Tips for round 26. Let's go. First up, the Cowboys take on the Storm at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Now, the Cowboys have won their previous two games against the Storm, but prior to that, they did lose 8 in a row against them. But they will fancy their chances against a much depleted Storm side this week. As predicted, Craig Bellamy has rested a number of players: Harry Grant, Jarom Hughes, Eli Katoa included, and this Cowboys side has now clinched a finals berth, but they will be wanting a home final up in Queensland Country Bank Stadium. It definitely helps them to win this week. They will most likely be taking on Manly first week of the finals, and Manly have a tough matchup this week, and we'll speak about that in a moment. But I feel like the Cowboys can pull through and get a win here, 1-12, and really lock down that home final spot, especially with it being at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. It will help them massively in the first week of the finals. And speaking of the Manly Seagulls, they will be taking on the high-flying Bulldogs at a core stadium this week. Manly come into this one with an impressive record against the Dogs. They've won 9 out of their last 10 games against them. If Tom Trbojevic can put in a performance like he did last week against the Tigers and score 3 tries and run for over 200 metres, then it's going to be really tough for the Dogs, but their defence is the best in the competition right now, and I really don't see Manly plugging many holes, despite their dominant attack this year. I feel like the Dogs could get a win here and just close out this season, finishing in a strong 5th position and take on whoever finishes in that 8th spot. Let's go Dogs, 1-12. Next, we have the Panthers taking on the Rabbitohs out at Bluebet Stadium in Penrith. Now, the Panthers will be thankful that they are taking on the Rabbitohs at this point in the season. They definitely have not looked like themselves of late, and the Rabbitohs is a team that they have won 8 out of their last 10 games against. For the Rabbitohs, it's about just putting up some decent performances. I thought last week they were pretty good in the first half, and no doubt Ben Hornby can be proud of the efforts that he's put in this year during all the turmoil that's gone on at the Rabbitohs. I feel like they won't be up for this one. I just see the Panthers bouncing back. They haven't actually lost 3 games in a row since 2019. I mean, we'll see if it happens this week, but I can bet your bottom dollar that it's probably not going to happen. Let's go the Panthers in this one, 13 plus. First Saturday game for the week is the Eels taking on the Dragons at CommBank. Now, the Dragons haven't actually played the Eels at one of their home grounds since 2019, which I find a little bit ridiculous. They've always had to go away to play Para in the last 5 seasons, and logic would tell us that they lost last week, so they should probably win this week. I'm going to be taking the Dragons 1-12 here. I feel like for Parramatta, they just need to hang on towards the end of the season, and no doubt everyone has circled in the calendar the Spoon Bowl in round 27 out at Campbelltown with the Tigers, especially with the Tigers getting a bye this week. It puts added pressure on Parramatta to potentially win a game here. But I just feel like with the form guide for the Dragons, they'll show up this week, and it's really bad timing because they may not show up next week. The Dolphins take on the Broncos at Suncorp, and the slide is real for the Dolphins this season. They've won 3 out of their last 11 games at this point, and it's not looking good in terms of where their finals aspirations lie this year. They were slated to almost make it to the top 4 at one point, and are now looking at missing the top 8. And basically, whoever wins this game is out of contention. That is it. You can go home and cry about it, but I feel like the Dolphins could show up this week. The Broncos against the Eels were anything but convincing. I feel like they still gave up quite a lot of points. I know Kevy came out and said that they're going to be making the finals, but with a performance like that against the 16th, 17th best team in the competition, I mean, come on. Like, you're going to need a little bit better than that. I feel like the Dolphins are a better team than the Eels, and they've shown that this year. They've played football in patches where you think that they could be a top 4 team, but it's about whether we're going to see that, and I feel like we haven't seen it for nearly 2 months at this point. I'm going to go the Dolphins begrudgingly here, though. I feel like they get a win 1-12, and it will unfortunately be a season to forget for the Brisbane Broncos. The Sharks take on the Warriors at PointsBet Stadium, and it will be the last game in the career of Shaun Johnson, fittingly enough that it comes against the only other team that he played for in the Premiership. I feel like they should maybe play for something called the Shaun Johnson Cup in the future, but let's, I guess, move on to the tip this week. Nico Hines has been listed amongst the reserves this week. Now we'll see if he can make it into the side at the end of the week. No doubt we'll be wanting to pass a fitness test, but I'm just not sure whether they need to put him in at this point in time. I feel like the Warriors could get up emotionally for this game, but it was such a big emotional outtake for them last week at home for Sean Johnson's last game. But no doubt the tears will be flowing and we will be able to celebrate a guy who has had a great career at the top level of the game. I am going to go the Sharks, however. I feel like they get it done 1 to 12. They are going to be missing Jesse Ramien this week, who's been massive for them this year, but I just feel like they have enough in the tank to go with this Warriors side who are leaking points quite regularly at the moment. Sharks, 1 to 12. On Sunday, we head up to Newcastle for the Knights taking on the Titans. Now, this is a huge game in the context of the Knights season. Lose, and they are completely eliminated from finals contention. Win, and they still keep their finals hopes alive in a mathematical sense. They do get Braden Best back for this game, and that is a welcomed in considering some of the attacking output that they've been putting up lately. However, last week I thought was one of their best weeks in terms of attack. I thought that Kalen Ponga finally stepped up and produce some of those plays that he was well known for in last season. A couple of half breaks, a couple of nice line breaks as well. And for the Titans, very similarly to the Dolphins, they've had a bit of a form slump of late, and no one really knows why. They seem to want to be experimenting with a few things, maybe in preparation for 2025. They had David Fafita playing on the right side last week when he's been playing left all season, and then Bo Fermor and him switch sides, which they did a few years ago when Bo Fermor made State of Origin as well, but I'm just not exactly sure what they're up to at the moment. They are out of finals contention, and one of their biggest issues is they don't know where to play one of their best players, AJ Brimson. Right now, he looks like a little lost puppy, and Keanu Kinney is having possibly a little bit of a downfall in form compared to what he was producing about a month ago. I'm going to go the Knights here. I feel like they get a pretty decent win over them, but I don't expect it to be any more than 1 to 12 just because of the Knights' attacking output this year against some teams has been really good, and against teams who can actually defend, it hasn't been great. So if the Titans can score 20 points, I feel like they win the game, but I feel like the Knights will be able to defend anything that the Titans throw at them. Let's go Knights, 1 to 12. Last game of the round is the Roosters taking on the Raiders at Allianz. Now, the Roosters are cruising at this point in time. They've just moved into second position and are one of the biggest flat track bullies in the competition. I do worry about their record against top 8 teams at the moment. It is currently 4-7, so they've won 4 out of 11 games against top 8 teams this year. The Raiders are not in the top 8, but they do have a pretty decent record. They've won 4 out of their last 10 games against the Roosters, considering how dominant the Roosters have been as a club in forever. That is a pretty decent record. For the Raiders, it was one of their most impressive wins of the year last week, beating the Panthers at home. They turned them away and forced them into mistakes, and that ended up costing Penrith in the end. Emotional scenes for Elliot Whitehead, who has been an absolute warrior for that club over the years, and no doubt he'll be looking to get a win over old rivals this week in the Roosters. But I feel like the Roosters definitely beat the Raiders in this one. I expect it to be close, though. I feel like the Raiders will D up a little bit more just because of the emotion of the game, and they are still, funnily enough, in contention for the finals. But I just don't know if it's going to be enough this week. Roosters, 1 to 12. So that's it for this week's tips here on Zero Tackle, guys. I've been Bergs from The Casual Athlete, and I'll catch you next week.